Trevor Story's 2025 dominance has allowed Red Sox fans to smell October baseball.
You are Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Gabby Maljanian, former ESPN social media associate and current host of the Boston Balling podcast as well. And I am here to bring you the latest in all things Boston Red Sox, Monday through Friday, straight to your favorite podcast feed. And the best part, it's completely free. So make sure that you tune in because Locked On is here for you every single day. This episode is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy Transfusion. Go to 5hourenergy.com today and use my promo code LOCKEDONGOLF to receive 20% off your order. Only valid through September 30th. Order transfusion-flavored 5 Hour Energy shots today. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to the show. Hope you're having a good week so far. Those of you who are regulars on YouTube when it comes to watching this show, notice that I have a new background behind me. I have the one and only Ted Williams right back here. So enjoy that for your viewing pleasure while you're tuning into my show on YouTube, which, by the way, shout out to the everydayers. Really appreciate all of you for continuously coming back to the show. And you know who else I appreciate? Trevor Story. He has been on a dominant run in 2025. And why has that been a game changer for this Boston Red Sox team? I'm going to be telling you exactly that on today's show, as well as building a potential 2026 starting rotation and talking about a really special Red Sox prospect. So when you think about the now and the future, you feel like both are bright for the Boston Red Sox. You have a really good set of prospects in the system who could come up and make a difference at the major league level, which is particularly exciting. But you also have a team that right now is in a playoff spot, the first wild card spot, and knocking on the door of the AL East. And that is very exciting because this was a team that was in fourth place, 10 games behind the first place Yankees not too long ago. And now things really have changed in that regard when it comes to the standings within their division. And it gives people a lot of excitement for what's to come in the postseason. Now, when you look at this Red Sox team and how exactly they've been doing it and how exactly they've been able to get themselves into playoff contention, you can point very easily to the pitching and the fact that Lucas Giolito and Brian Bayo have both been performing at a really high level out of the starting rotation this year. You can look at how dominant the bullpen has been. You can look at the emergence of guys like Roman Anthony and Marcelo Meyer coming up to help with the chemistry that this team has right now. You can look at Alex Bregman, who's been very strong for the Red Sox, both on and off the field, because he served as a good mentor and leader. There are plenty of different things you can point to when it comes to the Red Sox success. But one of the biggest and most surprising success stories that comes with this season is Trevor Story. Trevor Story is one of the primary reasons why the Red Sox are in playoff contention right now, because if you think about where Trevor Story's offense was at the last couple seasons, he was somebody who could not get anything going at the plate, and it truly felt like more often than not, he was an automatic out. You couldn't trust him in big moments, and you couldn't really trust him to get on base when the Red Sox desperately needed a base runner. He would a lot of times put up a non-competitive at-bat in those situations, and it would result in a strikeout or very weak contact. So Trevor Story hitting in the middle of the lineup and being somebody who was really struggling in that role was not a good sign for this Red Sox team, because you would look at the offense and say, wow, do they really have many threats in this lineup? Do they really have a lot of guys who are going to give opposing pitchers a hard time? In the middle of the order is the meat. That needs to be the part of the order that capitalizes, because if you're hitting in the top of the order, you want to get on base early on in games, and then that middle of the order has to be able to come and back you up. And Trevor Story was unable to back up this Red Sox team. Now you look at him in 2025, and he has really come a long way. He was actually named American League Player of the Week for this past week. During that stretch, he was batting .500 with a 1.793 OPS, going 9 for 18 with 7 runs scored, 4 doubles, 3 home runs, 8 RBIs, 2 walks, and a stolen base. So talk about just pure dominance over the last week. And even if you pinpoint to more than just the past week, right now on the season, he has 446 plate appearances, 418 at-bats with 59 runs scored, 107 hits, 18 home runs, 18 stolen bases, a 256 average, 299 on base percentage, 431 slugging, and 730 OPS. So if you look at that compared to last year his batting average was 255. So obviously just barely below, but his on base percentage was 340 last year compared to 299 right now. His slugging was just 394 last year, though, compared to 431 this year. So what exactly does that say? Obviously, last year was a really small sample size because he was injured for a lot of the season. So it's really hard to compare what he did over the course of a month because that could have just been a really hot month, since he does tend to be a streaky hitter who goes on really big hot streaks and then really big cold streaks immediately following. So it's really hard to compare his season from last year to this year, but it tells me that he is capitalizing on his opportunities a lot more this year. He's perfect in stolen base attempts, which is something that he really brings to his game. Something that I've noticed from this year compared to last year is he is relying a lot more on his power. He's actually in the 81st percentile for both average exit velocity and hard hit percentage. So he's just relying on more power to allow the ball to travel further and create more impactful at-bats. He is still striking out a lot. He's in just the 8th percentile for strikeout percentage and the 10th percentile for walk percentage, which are both things that he has struggled with over the course of his career. One of the biggest differences from last year to this year was that he did walk more last season. He was a little bit more patient in that regard. Part of that could have been because of the injury and him coming back and being a little bit more conservative with what he was swinging at. So he did draw a lot more walks last year. That's an area in which he declined this year. But the strikeouts are still a problem. The chase percentage is also still a problem. He's in the 11th percentile for chase percentage. And while Trevor Story has put together some really good at-bats and has been a key contributor for this Red Sox team, he also has had some really bad at-bats, which he's chasing pitches well out of the zone. And that's always been a Trevor Story problem, is swinging at pitches in the dirt or just well outside the strike zone. And he still has that problem. So there are still some underlying issues with Story. But the difference is that the hot streaks are lasting a lot longer than they typically did in the past. He's actually on pace to finish the season with more hits, homers, and RBIs than he totaled in his first 3 Red Sox seasons. Obviously, again, in his first 3 Red Sox seasons, he's been injured a lot of the time. So it was really hard for him to go out there and actually put up stats. But that's telling that he could finish this season alone with more of those impactful at-bats than he had in those first 3 seasons combined, which is a miracle if you're thinking about where he was at even going into the season. He does attribute his success this season to feeling healthy and prepared, suggesting that injuries have been a factor in his past inconsistencies, which 100% is fair. He never really got a full off season with the Red Sox until this upcoming season. He had a lot of times where he was injured during spring training, so he couldn't actually prepare for the season. And the first time that he had an offseason with the Red Sox, he was brought in really late in spring training, so he didn't, again, get a full offseason with the team. This past offseason was the first time that he truly got a full offseason with the Red Sox, and it is making a difference because he's hitting with a lot more confidence, and he's hitting in marquee moments. When the Red Sox need a big hit, he's been the one getting it. We saw it a lot in the series against the Astros over the weekend, that when the Red Sox really needed somebody to come through with a big hit, Story was that guy, compared to last year and the year before, where he was so not that guy. So from a situational hitting standpoint, he's hitting a lot better in that specific area, and that has really helped fuel the Red Sox offense and take it to another level. He is a difference maker because you no longer have an automatic out in the middle of the lineup. You have a guy who, yes, will still have some non-competitive at-bats, but you also feel like it's a different version of Trevor Story, one that can capitalize on situations in which the Red Sox really need big hits, and that's something that's really stood out to me. So good for him on winning AL Player of the Week. He totally 100% deserved that, and I'm so excited to see him continue to play with this Red Sox team and hopefully continue to give his best day in and day out, because if the Red Sox do qualify for the postseason, which hopefully they do, and they are on a good pace right now to actually be able to do that, then they are going to need Trevor Story's bat to come alive in the postseason like we have seen. And yes, he goes through some really abysmal cold streaks, but the hot streaks have been happening more frequently this season than they have for him in the past. And that is the biggest reason why he's been able to find more success at the plate this year, is because of the fact that he just has been able to keep up a little bit more consistently when it comes to hitting well. So we'll have to see what happens with him moving forward over the next couple months. Hopefully he can keep that consistency going. But coming up, I'm going to be building out a potential 2026 starting rotation for the Red Sox and what that could look like. Do you want to start betting on sports? Are you really big into the sports betting action but don't feel like you're making a lot of money? Switch to FanDuel today. You can bet on sports easily. My husband does it every day, sits at the kitchen table, builds out his bets for the day, and then he wins big on FanDuel when those bets hit, because the app actually suggests different bets that you can make, piling on different sports that are going on that day to make sure you're maximizing the experience and winning as much money as you can. So I highly recommend it if you want to start winning bank. New to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. The Red Sox are in a very good spot right now. A very good spot. This is a team that's finally enjoyable to watch. And it's been a long time coming before we could actually say that, because this was a Red Sox team that in the first couple months of the season, at least, arguably even a little bit longer than that, it was like pulling teeth watching this team, because there were little things that they were doing wrong. They were making lots of errors in the field. They were just not playing baseball to their full potential. And Craig Breslow had even expressed at one point that they weren't getting the results they were hoping to get, and things were starting to look very gloomy. But ever since right before the All-Star break, the Red Sox have been turning things around and playing good baseball and actually winning series against very strong teams like the Astros and the Dodgers. And it's very exciting to watch them play right now because of the fact that they just have a lot of players who are just hungry and want to win. And it truly goes to show that you don't need to be the best team on paper to find success in this league. You could be that team that's solely based on chemistry and go to the playoffs. And that's where we're at with this Red Sox team, is that there truly is a lot of chemistry within this team. And one of the reasons why the Red Sox at the trade deadline didn't necessarily make as big of a splash as people thought they were going to is because of the fact that they were unwilling to move any of their current major league talent. Why? Because they didn't want to break that bond and that team chemistry that exists right now in this clubhouse. They felt really confident in the guys that they have, and they were willing to move any prospect that another team wanted, but they were unwilling to part ways with any of their current major league guys. And that was part of the reason, most likely, why they weren't able to end up trading for Twins pitcher Joe Ryan. So when it comes to encompassing all of that and thinking about that, is Joe Ryan still a plausible opportunity for the Red Sox? 100%. Craig Breslow in the offseason should absolutely go after Joe Ryan. Why? Because he'll likely be a little bit cheaper than he was at the trade deadline, because teams usually up their asking prices at the trade deadline when everybody's desperate. Whereas if you trade for somebody in the offseason, the asking price is usually not as steep, just like he did with Garrett Crochet. Did not trade for him at the trade deadline last year, waited until the offseason, traded for him, and now they've hit the jackpot with him. So if they trade for Joe Ryan, they could get a legitimate number 2 behind Garrett Crochet in the offseason. And if that were to be the case, what could the Red Sox starting rotation look like? Because there are a lot of different factors to include in this. They would still have Brian Bello in the mix. So if you had Garrett Crochet, Joe Ryan, and Brian Bello, theoretically, for example, then you look at a guy like Lucas Giolito, who has a pretty complicated contract situation with the Red Sox right now. So when he signed with the Red Sox before the 2024 season, it was a 2-year deal. And then he ended up missing the entirety of the 2024 season. So he exercised his player option that he had available for 2025. So now basically going into 2026, the deal with his contract situation involves a mutual option, but there are some restrictions to that. So basically with where he's at right now, he has been pitching very well. So the chances of the Red Sox wanting him back in 2026 are probably pretty high. But essentially, his deal includes a conditional option that includes a $14 million club option or $1.5 million buyout for next year if Giolito throws fewer than 140 innings this year. So essentially what that means is if he's under 140 innings, then the Red Sox can either buy him out for $1.5 million and then he just goes and tries to play elsewhere, or they can exercise a club option and choose to keep him around. If he goes over 140 innings, which he is on pace to do right now, as long as he averages about 6 innings per start moving forward, then it becomes a $19 million mutual option that he could still opt out of, or the team could opt out of if they don't want to stay united in 2026. So there is a condition involved with it, but I don't imagine the Red Sox not having a desire to want to bring him back with how well he has been pitching as of late. He pitched on Sunday against the Astros, in which the Red Sox won 6-1, and he threw a solid 8 innings, giving up 3 hits and 1 earned run, which was just on a solo home run to Carlos Correa. He had 1 walk and 4 strikeouts, so a very dominant outing for him. And he has come a long way from where he was at earlier on in the season, because the season started off pretty rough for him, obviously, because he got injured. But even when he came back from injury, he was struggling. So if you even look back to 2023 with him, the last time he has felt as good as he does now about the way he's been throwing the baseball was the first half of 2023, when he logged a 3.45 ERA over 19 starts for the White Sox. Now, 2 years later, he was worried that the second half of 2025 might turn out to be like the second half of that season, when he switched teams twice in the season's final months. First, when Chicago traded him to the Angels, and then after 6 starts in Anaheim, he was then claimed by Cleveland on August 31st. Moving around ended up taking its toll on him after 7 years and 162 starts with the White Sox. So he had a brutal second half that year. And then he obviously was injured in 2024. So this second half was going to be a big test for him. And sure enough, he has lived up to that test, and his starts have been absolutely dominant as of late for this Boston Red Sox team. And it's definitely not something that anybody expected from him, but he has increased his arsenal a lot more, because at the beginning of the season, when he was just coming back from injury, he only really had 2 pitches he was utilizing. So he's expanded on that arsenal, and it has allowed him to find a lot more success. He's basically matching pace with Garrett Crochet when it comes to his efficiency over the last month or so, which is absolutely crazy because Garrett Crochet is the ace. So because he has been pitching as well as he has, the Red Sox likely would want to exercise that mutual option if he continues to pitch well for the rest of this year. The question is, would he want to stick around and exercise that option, or would he opt out and try to look for more money or a bigger contract? That is where the question comes into play. And because he's pitching so well, there is a chance he opts out. And if the Red Sox are competing against other teams, there's no guarantee they can get him back. So he could be that 4th option in the rotation if you already have Bello, Joe Ryan, and Crochet. But if he were to opt out, then you have to explore other options. Is Hunter Dobbins somebody who you see being a piece to the puzzle moving forward? Is top pitching prospect Peyton Tolley, who just got promoted to AAA Worcester, somebody who could potentially be part of that rotation? That's definitely a name to keep an eye on. Is Cooper Criswell somebody who the Red Sox would want to have stick around to maybe make some starts? What about Richard Fitz? Where do they feel like he's at? So all of those guys come into play at that point. Then you have Dustin May, who's scheduled to make his Red Sox debut tomorrow night, Wednesday night. He's going to be a free agent after this season. So the Red Sox traded for him at the trade deadline, essentially as a rental to help with their playoff push this year. But he's also somebody that the Red Sox are going to have to consider. This is the type of situation where they would see how he pitches this year. If he blows everybody out of the water, then the Red Sox might want to extend him and bring him back. And then Walker Buehler is also on a one-year deal. I'm personally not bringing him back, but there are a lot of question marks once you get past those top three. But if you get Joe Ryan to add to that rotation and your top three is Garrett Crochet, Joe Ryan, and Brian Bayo, then the rest of it can work itself out, because you also have to take into account the fact that Tanner Houck is likely going to miss the entirety of the season because he has to have Tommy John surgery. So that's another factor in this. You are not going to have Houck for at least a good majority of the season. Maybe he would pitch towards the end, but it's looking highly unlikely. So that's another pitcher you have out that you thought you could have relied on in your rotation. So go out and get Joe Ryan in the offseason. Be aggressive just like you were with Garrett Crochet. Maybe in the offseason, you would have more flexibility to be able to move one of your major league players, because the chemistry of the team that you rode through in this year's playoff run might not necessarily apply as much once they get through the offseason and things look a little bit different anyway because of free agents, etc. So maybe then you take the opportunity to offer a major league player in the deal to try to get Joe Ryan in return. But him being part of the Red Sox rotation would 100% be a game changer. And then you would have your top three solidified, and then you play around with the 4 and 5. And if Giolito comes back, great, you have 1 through 4. Then you kind of experiment with guys to see who it makes sense to put in the number 5 spot. But ultimately, if you have a rock solid 1, 2, 3, that is going to win you lots of games. And where the Red Sox rotation is at right now, they could definitely use another dominant arm like Garrett Crochet to add to this rotation. So I'd like to see them do that for sure, and we'll have to see if they do. But coming up, there's a Red Sox prospect who continues to explode in AAA. I'm going to be talking about him next. It's time to fuel up with 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. This brings a lot of flavor to your favorite golf drink minus the alcohol, so that you can get a quick energizer while you're on the course. Playing 18 holes is exhausting. I have a lot of friends who go out and will play 18 holes of golf, and it takes them 5 hours to finish. And if it's a really hot day that day, people are dying. So this is where 5-Hour Energy Transfusions can absolutely save the day for you, because instantly your energy game will be back to being on point. If you go to 5hourenergy.com today, that is the number 5hourenergy.com, you can use my promo code LOCKEDONGOLF to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders. Whether you're meeting up with friends or trying to turn 18 holes into 36, get the energizing boost you need to power through. Order transfusion-flavored 5-Hour Energy shots today. 5-Hour Energy Transfusions, I'm telling you, they save the day. So make sure that you are energizing yourself with them no matter what. The Boston Red Sox may have a really exciting current group of players that could help them get to the World Series in 2025. Obviously, I don't want to get ahead of myself. That's a pretty bold statement to make. But if all goes well, they could make a run just as much as anybody else. And you know what? That's super exciting if you're a Red Sox fan, because so many fans were getting super fed up with the front office and the Red Sox's inability to be able to contend, and fans were getting tired of having a mediocre team. This year's team is not a mediocre team. This year's team feels like a playoff team because the pieces are starting to come together. So while you think about the players on the field that are currently with the major league team and making a difference with them, we can also think about how exciting the future is, because the Red Sox do have a really strong group of talented prospects in their system that could help make a difference down the road. One of those prospects is top prospect Jhostynxon Garcia, who is swinging an absolutely scorching bat in the minors. He is now hitting .305 with a .375 on base percentage and .587 slugging in AAA Worcester amid a sizzling start to the month of August. He's often called the Password. That is his nickname because of his uniquely spelled first name, and he has homered in each of his last 3 games and went yard 4 times last week. So in light of all of that, he was named the International League's Player of the Week, which is so incredibly justified and well-deserved. He went 10 for 29 with 4 doubles and 13 RBIs over his last 6 games. The outfielder has registered a hit in 16 of his last 18 games overall. His stock does continue to climb during this whole campaign that he's been having and truly putting on a show in AAA. He moved into MLB's top 100 as the number 88 prospect, ranking second in Boston's farm system behind shortstop Franklin Arias after Christian Campbell, Marcelo Meyer, and Roman Anthony have now technically graduated from prospect eligibility. So, including his 33 games at AA, he's batting .288 with a .368 on base percentage and .518 slugging with 18 home runs this season. Among the 8 International League hitters with a higher OPS, only top catching prospect Samuel Basallo is younger than him. Under different circumstances, fans may be counting down the days actually until he reaches the majors, but they just have a crowded outfield right now, so it blocks his path to receiving meaningful playing time in Boston. So the question is, what do they do about him? His name was tossed around in trades at the deadline, but the Red Sox weren't able to get a deal done for players that involved having to move him. And obviously, it's hard to part ways with a guy who's going off like that, but the Red Sox do need to figure out their outfield situation at some point. And if they feel like he's going to be part of the future of this team, they either need to trade an outfielder in the offseason, or then they have to move him to maybe a different position and entertain the idea of it and see if that's something that he would be open to. So what they could do is he could be another platoon option for the left-handed Jarren Duran, Roman Anthony, and Wilyer Abreu. If the Red Sox felt like 100% he's ready for the majors right now, it'd be a sin for us not to call him up. They could just add him again into that rotation of guys who kind of switch around roles between playing in the field that day or DHing that day. He could be part of that group. Or since the Red Sox long-term first base situation is a little bit unclear because they are unsure about the future of Tristan Casas, they could entertain the idea of him playing first base. They are getting him some first base reps now in Worcester. I will actually be in Worcester this week, so I'll find out some more information regarding that. But the Woo Sox are having him take reps at first base, which means they're not opposed to the idea of at least seeing how it goes and seeing how he looks at that position. And if that's something that he is able to do pretty seamlessly, then what they could likely do is move away from the platoon option at first base of Toro and Romy and just have him play first base. And then if Tristan Casas is able to come back, then they kind of figure out what to do from there. Maybe they try to trade one of them and the other one stays as the first baseman of the future. But that's a way where the Red Sox could get him to the major leagues earlier, potentially, if they do believe in his ability and feel like he'd be ready. This guy smokes baseballs in AAA. He has a ton of power, so he could be somebody who could help balance out the lineup in that regard because he could swing for the fences a lot, and he's also a right-handed bat, so he could help balance out the lineup a little bit more. But he's been so impressive because of his swing decisions and the fact that he's just been able to show that he can really hit to all parts of the ballpark, which could really help set him up great for Fenway. He certainly has the bat for Fenway. So him being able to make that transition transition to the majors will probably be easier for him than you might think. The question now becomes, though, do the Red Sox want to take a chance on that? Do they want to take a chance on calling him up and feeling like he is a guy that they see potentially being even an infielder of the future for this team? Do they see him being an outfielder of the future? Do they want to risk calling him up prematurely and then him struggling and then they've moved somebody to make room for him and then it's too late and they can't go back? So those are all questions that the Red Sox are going to have to think about when it comes to making the decision on a guy like him, because it's obvious that he's lighting up the scene in AAA. It's obvious that he's a guy who likely is going to contribute at a really high level for this Red Sox team when he does eventually got called up. If that does happen, unless they trade him, which of course is obviously another conversation, but he's somebody who fans can look forward to. But it also just points to the fact that the Red Sox have so much depth in their system. And it's a good problem to have, that you just have a lot of talent in your farm system to be able to accommodate a lot of players that you can build in your system. And it does get complicated figuring out where people are going to play. It's a lot better than having the opposite end where you just don't have a farm system. So the Red Sox just have a ton of talent coming up, and it's really exciting because they are competing for potentially a World Series championship this year, but you also think about the future and that being bright. And this is a Red Sox organization that we could see some successful seasons for a very long time. So I'm really excited for the password 100% deserved International League Player of the Week. He is continuing to go off with the Woo Sox. So now we just have to wait and figure out what the Red Sox are going to do with him. Do they want to increase the urgency of him being called up this season? I would say that doesn't make any sense, especially with the Red Sox playing good baseball right now. Keep the squad together, keep the chemistry going, let him continue to develop in AAA and turn into an absolute superstar, and then reevaluate the situation in the offseason. So we'll have to see what they do about it, but I do appreciate you tuning into Locked On Red Sox and making it your first listen of every day. Be sure to next check out Locked On MLB Game Night on the Locked On MLB YouTube channel or wherever you listen to podcasts. You can get local analysis on a national scale. Our Locked On experts talking about every single game that's taken place every single night for the entirety of the season. So make sure that you check that show out next. And like I always say, keep the faith, go Red Sox, and I'll catch you on the flip side.